All right, let's move on to the next one. So next on our list is the skeptic. What does a skeptic do? Believes nothing. Now, the skeptic is like hesitant to make judgments, or like, so you know, I could see someone wanting to be a skeptic in these times. I mean, who can you really trust? Can you trust the scientists? Aren't scientists sometimes politically driven? Can you trust the news media who are delivering information from the scientists? Well, then what can we really believe, right? And so, um, and it might be that being a skeptic is like the wise or safer thing to do. Um, but that's not obvious. So we're going to talk about the pros and cons in the Zoom session. But one thing to say is there's such a thing as an extreme skeptic or like a radical skeptic. So most of us, if we are skeptic, it's more like in limited domains. So some people are skeptics about God or religion. Okay, so they don't have any. They're not going to hold any beliefs about God or religion. Or they might be skeptics about like extraterrestrials. Other people go farther. They're skeptics about morality. They're skeptics about afterlife. And some people go even farther. This normally only happens among philosophers, though, where they're just skeptic. Even they don't believe anything, even about like that there's a physical world around us. So this is the most radical version of skepticism. They're afraid about whether they might be dreaming. So I don't know if you have ever any of you have seen the movie Inception or an older movie, The Matrix. But there's a concern like, how do I know that the reality around me is real, right? And maybe it's just an image or an appearance of reality. So that's like the ultimate skeptic. But now we're not going to go that far. Just someone who just doesn't believe much about a lot of things. That's your skeptic, and we're going to talk about pros and cons of that. Okay, next is the relativist. Okay, relativist. Okay, the relativist tries to say everyone is right for them. Tries to say everyone is right for them. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard this phrase like, well, that's true for you, but it's not for me. Or that's true on your reality, but not in my reality. Or they might say something like that. That's the relativist. And oftentimes they'll do this in ethics. So like, so let's say two people are debating about abortion and whether it's right to have an abortion or not. And then people will say, well, okay, well, that's right for you, but it's not for me, not right for me, right? And they'll make claims like that. And normally, I'm going to mention one of the pros of the relativist. The relativist is kind of more like a peacemaker. They've seen people debate, and then they start to fight, and they're like, well, no, 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 like that's true from your perspective, and now this view is true from your perspective. So everybody's kind of right for them. Okay. Now, you gotta wonder, is this really making sense? So, like, the positive thing is that they're a peacemaker. In Zoom session, we'll talk about some of the possible cons of being a relativist. Okay, last on the list is the rational thinker. The rational thinker, what does a rational thinker do? Engages rationally with the arguments. Okay? So what they do is they just see where the arguments are and see which claims are supported by the premises. And that's how they believe. And you can tell if Feldman, the author of our reading, likes the rational thinker the best. Okay, so we've gone through the different types of arguers. Okay, and Feldman is going to propose the rational thinker probably as the best one, but we still want to examine pros and cons and even think about how these are different. So I'm going to point to one. Uh, a lot of people will sometimes get the skeptic mixed up with the person of contradiction. Okay, but they are different. Okay, so the person of contradiction actually disagrees with you. Okay, so you say you believe in God, and they go, no, there is no God. Okay, or you say you believe there is no God, and they say, no, there is a God. Whereas the skeptic says, I don't have a view on this. Okay, so the skeptic is trying to remain neutral, so the skeptic is different from the person of contradiction. Okay, and so the relativist says everyone is right for them, which is like the opposite of the person of contradiction, where you just say, no, no, that other guy's wrong. Where the relativist is trying to say everybody's right. So that's another comparison. Um, Another like opposite is a credulous person wants to believe everything. Skeptic wants to believe nothing. And you could see how like if somebody might start out as a credulous person and then they might get jaded and then become a skeptic because now they can never trust anyone again. Okay, and so we want to look at these sorts of examples and see their pros and cons, and we'll discuss them in the Zoom session. So, all right, there we go. That's all we got. So see you guys in a little bit.